He won when no one believed in him, made history without following anyone else's script. He was an athlete, a mentor, a legend, and he proved that real strength goes way beyond muscle. Forget everything you think you know about bodybuilding. Grab your pre-workout and come with us to explore the mind behind the muscle. This is the journey of a man who challenged time, the system, and the impossible. You're about to find out why Bill Pearl wasn't just a champion. He was, and still is, one of the most respected names in the sport. And now, it's time to tell a story. On October 31st, 1930, in Prineville, Oregon, a boy was born who would change the history of bodybuilding forever. Bill Pearl. He was raised in Yakima, Washington, in a hard-working, humble family. His dad owned a diner, and all the kids pitched in however they could. From a young age, Bill was doing serious labor, carrying 100-pound sacks of beans and grain day after day. Little did he know, that physical effort was shaping way more than a strong body. He was building discipline, resilience, and focus, the foundations of a true champion. Bill didn't start out dreaming of trophies or stages. It all began with curiosity. One day, he came across a magazine with jacked bodybuilders on the cover. Those physiques looked superhuman, real-life heroes. He was hooked. He saved up and bought his first set of weights. And that's when the magic began. Raw determination, no fancy gym, no coach, just a desire to change. That's where greatness is born. As a teenager, Bill turned his garage into a gym. No mirrors, no high-end equipment, just some plates, bars, and relentless drive. He trained every day, learning through trial and error. And here's the wild part. No internet, no YouTube, no training programs. Just him, the iron, and a dream. It's a reminder. Sometimes, your willpower is more powerful than any tool or tech. His days were packed with school, working at the restaurant, and lifting. That grind gave him a rock-solid foundation. He learned early that nothing comes easy. That mindset would shape everything he did from then on. He didn't know it yet, but he was already planting the seeds of success. Maybe that's the real secret of the greats. Not perfection, but consistency. What do you think matters more, raw talent or steady discipline? Even surrounded by average folks, Bill never stopped aiming higher. He knew he was made for something more. When he saw physiques like John Grimek and Steve Reeves, it all clicked. That was the path he wanted. Bill didn't come from money. He didn't have elite resources. But he had one thing that no one could take, hunger. And that hunger would take him farther than anyone thought possible. When Bill joined the U.S. Navy, he had no idea he was stepping into one of the most important chapters of his life. Stationed at the San Diego Naval Base, his days followed a strict routine full of rules, structure, and physical work. But it was in that tough environment that he had his first serious encounter with bodybuilding. And like in every great story, the right person showed up at the right time. It all changed at Leo Stern's gym. Leo, a seasoned bodybuilder and passionate gym owner, noticed something different about Bill right away. He saw real potential and decided to take him under his wing. He gave Bill guidance, corrected his form, and most importantly, believed in him. Sometimes, that's all we really need, right? Just someone who sees something in us before we see it ourselves. With Leo's help, Bill's training got a lot more intentional. It wasn't just lifting for the sake of lifting anymore. Every rep had a goal. Every set had a mission. Bodybuilding stopped being a hobby and became a life project. With his mentor by his side, Bill started seeing serious changes, not just in his body, but in his mindset too. The discipline he picked up in the Navy blended perfectly with his training routine. Bill followed a strict schedule, watched his diet, and made working out a top priority. While others just killed time on base, he was shaping himself for something way bigger. That mix of physical and mental strength started turning heads, and it didn't take long for his first shot at competing to show up. Ever thought about turning military service into a launch pad for your future? In 1952, Bill entered his first local competitions. At the Mr. San Diego, he placed third, then went on to win Mr. Oceanside. Those early wins lit a fire. He was still a rookie, but already showing signs that he wasn't just another guy in the gym. He wasn't just into bodybuilding. He was made for it. Those first contests showed Bill he could go way further. It was the beginning of a brand new mission, this time outside the military, but just as demanding. Now, he wasn't only lifting weights, he was lifting expectations, his own and everyone else's. Leo Stern's belief in him and the Navy's discipline had done their job. Now it was Bill's turn to prove what he was made of. Not long after those local wins, Bill Pearl dove headfirst into the competitive world. In 1952, he started entering the big leagues, and by 1953, at just 23 years old, he made his mark. He crushed 3 major titles: Mr. Southern California, Mr. America, and the prestigious Mr. Universe. Imagine being named the best in the country and the world all in one year. That wasn't luck, it was pure grit, serious work, and a mindset on the impossible. Those wins made Bill an instant star in the bodybuilding scene. But it wasn't just his massive, symmetrical physique that stood out. It was his humble, focused attitude. Unlike some athletes chasing fame, Bill was chasing growth. With every contest, he learned, adapted, and came back stronger. The stage became his second home, and trophies? Just the natural result of insane discipline. Between 1956 and 1971, he only competed in 11 contests. That's it, 11. But here's the crazy part. He won 9 of them. A win rate that's almost unheard of, especially in a sport that demands brutal year-round consistency. Bill stood out not just for his size, but for how long he stayed at the top, and how steady he was through it all. His most legendary win came in 1971 at the NABA Mr. Universe. He was 41, an age when most bodybuilders had long since retired. But he stepped back on stage to shut down the doubters. And he did it with style, beating some of the biggest names in the game: Frank Zane, Dave Draper, Sergio Oliva, and the iconic Reg Park. That one locked in his legacy. More than strength, it took guts, and Bill had plenty of both. What made Bill truly special wasn't just his body, it was his mind. He competed smart. He knew the human body inside and out, and how to use every detail to his advantage. His edge wasn't just in muscle, but in how he posed, how he carried himself, and how he connected with the crowd. He knew the stage wasn't just about flexing, it was a show, and his body was the masterpiece. Even when he wasn't competing, Bill kept evolving. He saw bodybuilding as a never-ending journey. Winning was cool, but becoming better? That was the real goal. Every workout was a battle. Every meal was a strategy. And even with all the glory, he never lost sight of what mattered: hard work, consistency, and love for the game. While many of his peers saw Mr. Olympia as the ultimate stage, Bill Pearl chose a different path. He never competed in the Weider Brothers event, even though he had everything it took to win. For some, that was shocking. For others, straight up controversial. But for Bill, it was about sticking to his principles. He didn't see value in competing at a show that, in his words, cared more about hyping people than rewarding excellence. In interviews, Bill often called Olympia a Mickey Mouse event, taking a jab at how unprofessional it was in the early days. He recalled one year where only 2 guys competed, Arnold and Sergio, and even a random dude from the crowd jumped on stage to pose. And the crowd? They cheered louder for the audience than for the actual athletes. That, to Bill, said it all. The event lacked structure, seriousness, and respect for the sport. And for someone like him, someone who lived by ethics and honored bodybuilding deeply, that just didn't fly. Bill preferred NABA competitions, like Mr. Universe, because he believed they had more tradition, clearer standards, and genuine respect for the athlete. That's the stage where he built his reputation, facing off against the best and beating them. No IFBB approval needed. To him, NABA wasn't just a federation, it stood for integrity. Even without the Mr. Olympia title, he was still seen around the world as the best. Makes you think, does true recognition come from the title or the journey? That decision took him away from the commercial spotlight that so many athletes chased, but it kept him grounded and true to his values. He didn't want to be just another champ. He wanted to be an example. In a world where people often sell out for fame or cash, Bill proved you could take a different path and still be a giant. That solid stance made him even more respected. Even folks who disagreed with him had to admit, the guy had guts, and stuck to his beliefs. He wasn't led by trends or convenience. He was driven by conviction. And in the end, that's what built his legend. Because character weighs in on stage too, even if the judges can't score it. It's wild how, despite never stepping on the Olympia stage, Bill Pearl stayed at the top of the sport for decades. He showed you don't have to follow the mainstream path to reach greatness. Sometimes, it's the road less traveled that proves just how far you can go. Maybe that's exactly why his story hits so hard, because it was never about playing by the rules. Bill never needed anyone's approval to know who he was. He made his choices, stood by his words, and still built a legacy that's impossible to ignore. When Bill finally stepped away from competition, he didn't leave bodybuilding behind, not even close. That's when he stepped into a whole new role, ambassador of sport. He started traveling the world, sharing his passion through strength demos and public talks. And he wasn't just striking poses. Bill wowed crowds by bending steel, tearing license plates, snapping chains, and even bursting hot water bottles with his breath. He was a full-on showman, part athlete, part icon. But those shows weren't just for fun. They were meant to inspire. Bill wanted people to see that bodybuilding wasn't just about stepping on stage. It was a lifestyle. Every appearance was a chance to educate and motivate. He talked about training, nutrition, discipline, ethics, and most importantly, respect for your body and your mind. Each performance felt more like a live masterclass on what it really means to be an athlete. Can you think of someone who used their talent to teach, not just shine? On top of that, Bill Pearl was also a savvy businessman. He opened gyms, invested in fitness spaces, and became a true leader in building the fitness industry. He understood the sport needed infrastructure, real places where new athletes could grow. And he made that happen, turning gyms into communities for people who loved strength, health, and self-improvement. It wasn't just about lifting, it was about building something together. But maybe his greatest contribution outside the stage was as a mentor. Bill trained and coached countless athletes, including the legendary Chris Dickerson, who went on to win Mr. Olympia in 1982. He wasn't just a coach, he was a teacher. Tough but humble. He valued technique, consistency, and above all, character. Because in his eyes, a great physique wasn't enough. You needed integrity too. Bill's impact as a mentor shaped an entire generation of bodybuilders. Many of the stars who rose in the decades that followed were directly or indirectly influenced by his guidance. It proves that sometimes a person's greatest legacy isn't in the titles they win, but in the people they help rise. A true champion isn't just someone who wins. It's someone who shows others how to win too. Blending charisma, wisdom, and passion, Bill became a cornerstone of global bodybuilding. He earned respect from both newcomers and legends, fans and critics alike. He brought worlds together, the spotlight and the backstage, the show and the soul. And maybe that's why his legacy still shines so bright today. Even after stepping away from the spotlight of competition, Bill Pearl stayed in the lead role. He proved that an athlete's career doesn't end with retirement. It just changes form. From champion to mentor, showman to entrepreneur, he showed that bodybuilding is a lifelong journey. To Bill, bodybuilding was never just about lifting weights or chasing medals. It ran much deeper. It was a way of life. He believed shaping the body also meant shaping character. Every rep, every workout was a personal promise to grow. The muscles? Just the visible part. The real stuff, discipline, humility, purpose, was beneath the surface and way more powerful. This mindset led Bill to connect with spiritual leaders like Sri Chinmoy, known for promoting peace and inner development. In 2004, Bill served as Master of Ceremonies at an event led by Chinmoy, later featured in the documentary Challenging Impossibility. At that event, Bill took part in a tribute not about biceps or strength, but about the power of the mind and spirit. That documentary, shown at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2011, revealed a side of Bill many had never seen. The reflective, spiritual man who viewed bodybuilding as a tool for self-discovery. His appearance wasn't just symbolic. It confirmed that his influence reached far beyond muscle. He inspired people to look inward, not just into the mirror. Even in the most intense training sessions, Bill believed the mind had to be fully present. For him, lifting was like active meditation. Each set was a dialogue with the body. Every milestone reached was living proof that growth is always possible. And this wasn't just talk, it was how he lived. He'd wake up at 3 a.m. to train, even after retiring from competition. This approach drew in not just athletes, but people searching for balance and purpose. Bill became a quiet guide for those looking to live with more awareness and connection. His writings were simple, yet deep, and they showed that bodybuilding could be a bridge to something greater, a life with meaning. By uniting body, mind, and spirit, Bill Pearl proved that true greatness goes way beyond looks. He turned bodybuilding into a path of personal transformation. In a world where ego often overshadows the sport, his message hits hard. Building muscle is great, but building a strong soul? That's what really matters. At age 39, while most athletes were eating tons of meat to maintain muscle, Bill made a bold move. He became a vegetarian. Specifically a lacto-vegetarian, meaning he still ate eggs and dairy, but no meat. To many, that sounded impossible for a bodybuilder. But Bill proved them wrong. He kept his strength, his size, and his energy for decades. That decision wasn't just personal, it became a mission. He started speaking out about the benefits of this lifestyle in interviews, seminars, and books. He showed it was possible to build muscle, stay healthy, and perform without relying on a meat-heavy diet. It made people stop and think, maybe what we've always accepted as truth in fitness isn't so set in stone after all. More than a bodybuilder, Bill became a respected writer and teacher. His most famous book, Getting Stronger, taught strength training principles to men and women at all levels. It was translated into multiple languages and sold over 350,000 copies in the US alone. It wasn't just a technical manual, it was motivational. It spoke to readers like a coach would, clear, honest, and empowering. Then came his massive Keys to the Inner Universe, a legendary book with over 1,500 exercises. Weighing nearly 11 pounds, about 5 kilograms, it became a go-to resource for trainers and serious lifters. It was the work of a lifetime, packed with illustrations, detailed instructions, and real-world advice. He didn't hoard knowledge, he shared it all. And that, in itself, is a kind of immortality. Beyond books, Bill had monthly columns in top magazines like Muscle Mag and Muscle and Fitness. He answered questions, gave training advice, and tackled life topics too. In a time before social media, his voice reached thousands through ink and paper. He was a consistent, guiding presence for readers around the world. In 2003, he released his autobiography, Beyond the Universe, The Bill Pearl Story. There, he told his journey with raw honesty, from humble days in Yakima to the biggest stages in bodybuilding. He shared wins, setbacks, tough decisions, and deep lessons. It wasn't just about muscles. It was about a man always evolving. With every book, every page, and every seminar, Bill made one thing clear. The real legacy isn't just the body you build, it's the knowledge you leave behind. He taught, inspired, and challenged generations to think differently, inside and outside the gym. Throughout his life, Bill Pearl built such a rock-solid legacy that it became impossible not to recognize him. His achievements, character, and contributions to the sport earned him countless awards and honors. In 1974, he was named the world's best-built man of the century, a title that perfectly summed up the impact of his physique and dedication. He wasn't just muscle, he was the ultimate symbol of bodybuilding excellence. And that title was just the beginning. In 2004, he received the prestigious Arnold Schwarzenegger Lifetime Achievement Award, one of the highest honors in the fitness world. Arnold himself paid tribute to Bill as a foundational figure, not just someone who inspired a generation, but someone who helped shape modern bodybuilding from the ground up. Bill was also inducted into over 10 halls of fame around the world, including the IFBB Hall of Fame, Gold's Gym Hall of Fame, the National Fitness Hall of Fame, and the American Powerlifters Federation. These accolades showed that his influence extended way beyond bodybuilding. crossing over into other sports and generations. He earned respect from anyone who valued strength, discipline, and integrity. Makes you wonder, does true recognition only come with time, when you never compromise who you are? What stood out about these honors was that they weren't just for his physique, they were for his ethics and character. Bill was remembered as someone who never cut corners, never stepped on others to rise. His awards weren't just for physical achievements. They were for who he was as a person. And in the ultra-competitive world of sports, that's rare. Maybe that's why he was so beloved. These tributes went far beyond award shows. For decades, Bill was the guest of honor at events, expos, and health conventions, welcomed like a living legend. And despite all the fame, he stayed approachable, kind, and eager to teach. He'd talk with fans, listen to their stories, and give advice with a smile. That humility made people admire him even more. Those recognitions immortalized Bill Pearl, not just as an athlete, but as a role model. He was the kind of figure who transcended his field and became a symbol of something greater. His trophies stood for dedication. His speeches became timeless lessons. He wasn't just remembered, he was revered. Winning awards is a result. Living with dignity is a choice. Bill chose the path of hard work, respect, and contribution, and that's why he was honored over and over again. Even after decades of victories and a legacy cemented in history, life still had challenges waiting. In April 2022, at 91 years old, Bill suffered a serious accident on his farm while operating a riding lawnmower. The machine tipped and landed on him, pinning him face down. It was a terrifying moment, and emergency crews had to act fast. Picture it, a man who was once the definition of strength, now facing a silent and dangerous battle. The diagnosis was serious, a fractured T10 vertebra, plus a neck injury. Emergency surgery lasted over 6 hours, and in the days that followed, he also battled a hospital-acquired bacterial infection. Even in pain, and at such an advanced age, Bill faced the ordeal with courage, just like he always had. He received an outpouring of support from his wife, his friends, and fans all over the world. It was one more fight in a lifetime of victories. During recovery, his body was slow to respond, but his mind stayed strong. Yet a condition he'd been dealing with since 2016 came back full force: Parkinson's disease. The progressive illness began affecting his mobility and basic functions more aggressively. Still, Bill never complained. He remained a quiet example of grace, even while facing struggles that would have broken most people. His wife, Judy Pearl, shared heartfelt messages on social media, giving people a glimpse into Bill's daily struggles and the overwhelming love he received. In one of her last updates, she wrote that despite everything, Bill had overcome challenges that would have broken any ordinary man. Her words touched thousands, proving that his impact went far beyond physical strength. On September 14th, 2022, Bill Pearl passed away peacefully at home in the state of Oregon. He was 91, surrounded by love, after a life dedicated to growth, both his own and others. The news shook the bodybuilding world, flooded social media, and moved fans across generations. It was the end of an era, but also the beginning of an everlasting memory. When someone that great leaves us, what remains are the lessons they left behind. Though the official cause of death wasn't fully disclosed, his wife believed Parkinson's played a major role. But what truly mattered wasn't how he passed. It was how he lived, with integrity, commitment, and purpose. Bill wasn't just a champion on stage. He was a champion in life. Even in his final moments, he showed what it means to face reality with dignity and faith. That last battle closed out a brilliant life with the same strength that built it. Bill Pearl may be gone, but his light still burns in every workout, every book, every act of perseverance he inspired. Bill Pearl wasn't just a champion. He was a pillar who held up the sport of bodybuilding for over 3 decades. He owned the stage, inspired athletes, and shaped generations with his vision of discipline, balance, and purpose. He proved that true bodybuilding goes way beyond looks. It's a journey of resilience, respect, and building character. His life was a powerful example of how passion, can become purpose. From athlete to mentor, showman to author, Bill took on many roles and shined in every one. He didn't want to be remembered just for the trophies, but for the values he stood for, the lives he touched, and the ideas he championed. And he succeeded. His story lives on, in gyms, in books, in videos, and in the hearts of everyone who truly loves this sport. Even today, people still read his books. They still watch his videos. His words are still being quoted. That's what happens when someone lives with authenticity. They become a lasting reference. If you made it this far, you already know this isn't just the story of a bodybuilder. It's the story of a man who turned his sport into art and his life into a lesson. And the best way to keep his legacy alive is to share that story. So, if this video inspired you in any way, hit that like button. It really helps us out, and it shows that stories like this still deserve to be told. And if you want to support the channel even more and be part of this community that truly values real bodybuilding, consider becoming a channel member. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive content, and you'll be helping us keep this project going strong. Every member makes a difference and helps us honor these legends the right way. Now I want to hear from you. What part of Bill Pearl's journey resonated with you the most? Was it his humble beginnings, the historic wins, his stance against the system, or the way he faced old age with so much dignity? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. I replied to many, and your words might just inspire someone else who landed here. And of course, if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Here, we tell the stories of bodybuilding legends with depth, passion, and respect. And if you want to keep going on this journey, check out the video linked in the card right above. I'll see you there.